Thank you very much. I'm just delighted to welcome Wayne Pacelle as the president of the Humane Society of the United States, the world's largest animal protection organization. In the 8 years that Wayne Pacelle has been president, HSUS has worked to pass 700 state laws to help animals. And he is himself the author of The Bond, the best-selling book on the kinship between animals and our call to defend animals. Wayne comes to us from starting his academic career in Yale and has been serving animals and humans and the community ever since. Wayne Pacelle.
Michael, thank you very much, not just for the intro, but for organizing this, you and the rest of the faculty here at Canisius. This is a fabulous bunch of people. It's going to go downhill now that I'm speaking, but to this point, it's been great. You know, yesterday in the New York Times, I don't know if anyone saw this, but in the A section it says, cat shows survivor instincts in 200-mile journey home. So a family was on vacation in Georgia. The cat somehow got lost and over a 2-month period found his way 200 miles back home to his family. I mean, just an incredible story. And I think for me it simply illustrates how remarkable these animals are, and this conference, this gathering, is worthy of this great domestic animal. You know, a lot of people think of the Humane Society and my colleagues at the ASPCA and the SPCA serving Erie County as focused on adoption, and we certainly are. I wanted to show you this PSA. The Ad Council, for the first time ever, is doing a project with us called the Shelter Pet Project, and trying to look at the quirky behavior of animals to promote adoption. So I want to show you this one ad.
So I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
So we are very much with my colleagues in the field, and I see a bunch of volunteers from the SPCA serving Erie County. Thanks for all you do and your great work in the community. Barbara has done an amazing job in this county and is a real hero to many of us who follow this movement closely. So thanks for all the great work you do. You know, if you look at our logo up there in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that the logo of HSUS consists of 19 different animals, showing that we're really about all animals. And there's a mountain lion or some other cat-like creature, and his tail is where buffalo is right now, if you can see that. And our magazine is called All Animals, and it's a great magazine that members get if they join. But we also publish another great magazine, which was just distributed to you. It's called Animal Sheltering. It's really for our field and for the public and private shelters and for the rescue groups and other people who are, you know, immersed in this cause. And it's a great resource. You can subscribe to this as well. And a lot of people refer to it as the Bible of animal sheltering. So I wanted to refer that to you, and we spend a lot of time examining many of the questions that were posed today by you, Michael, and by the other panelists. One thing about HSUS, and back to the logo, is we have an intense focus on domesticated animals, including dogs and cats and horses and farm animals. But we also have a robust program with wildlife. We have 126 staff devoted to wildlife. We have the largest wildlife rehabilitation center in the country. We have other centers. We have a humane wildlife services program that solves conflicts that people have with wildlife in their backyard or in their home. We get involved in policy issues. When I was listening to your presentation yesterday, we've got a petition to list the African lion on the endangered species list because their numbers are dropping. We've been working to protect lynx populations in North America. We've been trying to stop hound hunting of mountain lions. We are, and on, we're deeply concerned about wildlife, and we're concerned about domesticated animals. And there are two fault lines that have really developed over this cat issue that I want to pinpoint here in my brief time with you. We conducted a seminar, a day-long, actually it was a 3-day-long conference in Los Angeles called The Outdoor Cat, Science and Policy from a Global Perspective. And Dr. Noonan, you've taken a broader look at issues here with this group whom you've assembled. But we'll be publishing proceedings of that, and there's going to be a lot of great information that comes from it. But the two fault lines are, number one, there's increasing concern, and we don't have them well represented with the possible exception of Warren here, of biologists, environmentalists, others who are concerned about the impacts that free-roaming cats have on wildlife, with estimates that some have offered that more than 1 billion birds killed a year. We have no idea what the number is. There are people who try to attach numbers to these things, but I think it's very, very, very difficult indeed. And the second fault line is, how do traditional and innovative animal shelters and animal care and control agencies handle outdoor cats? And you heard some comments from Barbara today on how she's handling them and the innovative stuff. But traditionally, public animal care and control agencies were driven by this notion of animal control. I mean, it was to limit populations of animals that would be roaming and bite people or spread disease. And I was in India recently. There were dogs all over the place. I mean, it's a jarring sort of experience for someone in this country to see so many dogs, on every street. You go to Greece or somewhere, there are cats everywhere. Italy, there are cats everywhere. So our cultural notions are a little different from country to country. And this issue of how we handle these populations has been really raging in our movement, and I want to say a few things about that. Of course, we've heard on what a cat is. They're outdoors, they're owned, they may be feral, semi-owned. And this is a grid that basically shows the movement of cats, unowned to owned, indoor only, pet cats allowed outdoors, farm cats who are semi-owned, if you will, then stray pet cats, managed colonies through trap, neuter, and return programs, and then feral cats. We've had a number of slides on this issue. The American Pet Products Association, American Veterinary Medical Association, and MediaMark says the total number of owned cats is between 86 and 88. We've heard varying numbers because it's tough enough to count people in the census and much more difficult to catch or to count cats. So where are cats kept during the day? Among those owned cats, again, this is the owned category, 64%, according to these surveys, are indoors only. 11% are outdoors only, and both indoors and outdoors, 25%. And where are cats kept during the night? Indoors only 70%, outdoors only 9%, both indoors and outdoors. In my lifetime, I've seen perceptions change regarding dogs. I mean, it used to be when I was a kid, we chained our dog. I mean, I look back in horror at our tolerance for that, and now we have a whole different sort of norm with dogs, and I think we're starting to see things change with cats, as James Serpell said. Obviously, the organized animal protection movement has been a major, major factor in driving attitudes toward all animals, and especially companion animals. Henry Bergh, of course, founded the ASPCA in 1866, nearly a century and a half ago, and that focused the nation's attention, or at least began to focus our nation's attention on domesticated animals and wild animals and others. There's been many concerns through the years. By the way, the Bergh, of course, was motivated principally by cruelty to the horse, but he had a broad ethic, and a lot of the SPCAs and other organizations that formed had a broader anti-cruelty view, but it started with the horse. But as dogs and cats became more prominent in our lives, and as pet keeping really continued, there were more of those animals around, and there were more problems that were identified. And Edward Howe Forbush wrote a series of papers on the environmental impacts of cats more than a century ago, and continued for another decade or more. So this is not a new issue in terms of cats' impacts on wildlife. But I think all of us share, and I think this is the big takeaway for all of us today, I think generally we see that both sides in these debates, the environmentalists or the cat advocates, want to reduce the number of cats outdoors for the reasons that we spoke about in terms of the car accidents, the predation, the disease issues, the other threats that exist in that outdoor environment, and then the environmental impacts as well. So there are a bunch of different claimed impacts that cats are responsible for reducing population size of wild animals, predating upon rare or threatened or endangered species. There are sublethal effects, changes in community structure, breeding performance. There are disease issues, zoonotic diseases. There's ecological competition with similarly sized predators. There could even be interbreeding, and there have been some thoughts about taking of wild fish populations to feed cats and their effect on the pelagic or oceanic environment. Obviously, there are a lot of other threats to birds, habitat loss, hunting, bycatch communications towers, and many, many different aspects of this. So that, of course, tangles up any analysis that we do in terms of threats to avian life. So I mentioned there are two main approaches, and this is really one of these fault lines, as I said, within our movement and within the discussion about how we handle these outdoor populations. Trap them, then bring them to a shelter where all of the data show that the preponderance of them are going to be euthanized. Or engage in trap, neuter, and return, where you have almost exclusively volunteers who are out and about using their labor and their time to capture free-roaming cats, feral cats, to sterilize them and return them to the colonies in which they live. And the volunteer support for that is high. There are truly millions of people. I go to communities all across the country, and there are fabulous, devoted feral cat people. And they are willing to put in the time and energy. They are self-sacrificing. They do it for the love of the animals and for no limelight or any other benefit. And of course, you know, many more shelters and rescue groups are now training and teaching and trying to build this community and enhance its capacity. In terms of volunteer support for trapping and then killing the animals, which is what some conservationists advocate for, I don't know where you find the labor for that. The TNR people are certainly not going to be willing to go out and capture cats to have them killed, so who's going to do it? There is simply no labor pool to do it, so I think it's really an unrealistic idea. We support TNR actively, and we want to find more information. We don't think we've reached the end point in terms of the discussion about this issue, but it can, if done with a good deal of labor, depending upon the size of the colony, can stabilize cat populations. It makes use of this very large labor pool that exists in communities all across the country. It can, you know, benefit cats in a number of ways and therefore minimize some of the adverse effects that people have identified with cats. And of course, it provides an alternative rather than just kind of passively sit by and allow these populations to breed and to exert their many different impacts. It's a practical alternative. So I want to conclude by talking about some of the partnerships. This need not be a polarized situation between conservationists and animal welfare groups. And again, as I said in my introductory comments, we consider ourselves environmentalists and wildlife advocates at HSUS. We have as much skin in the game as just about any national organization in terms of wildlife issues. And we partnered with agencies to help rescue cats on San Nicolas Island, the impacts of cats in a very temperate environment in an island ecosystem where you do have many more vulnerable or threatened species and very few large predators, so the populations there would be acutely vulnerable to an exotic predator. These animals were removed humanely, and they were taken to one of our facilities in San Diego. In Hawaii, which has such a large number of threatened and endangered species, we've developed the Hawaii Coalition for the Protection of Cats and Wildlife, again, bridging this divide. The participants were the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Park Service, the Department of Land and Natural Resources in Hawaii, local humane societies, the University of Hawaii, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, and others. And our mission was to develop and implement collaborative efforts among wildlife managers and animal welfare advocates to protect cats and wildlife. And the vision was a home for every cat. And the goal was to humanely and effectively reduce feral and free-roaming cat populations to reduce impacts to protect Hawaii's native wildlife. We think that that is the only way to go. This research shows that in Hawaii, this was a sample of Hawaii residents, 19% of them owned or fed a stray or feral cat at least once a week. Roughly half of the owners allow their pet cats to go outdoors. Only 2 in 5 expressed some level of concern about their cats being outdoors, and only 2 in 5 cat owners agreed that outdoor cats have a negative impact on bird wildlife in Hawaii. So the point is that the public is not going to support this mass killing of cats, even in a place like Hawaii where there is a sensitivity. People love cats, they're concerned about them, there are different views about them, but the view that we should just kill them, I think, is not going to prevail. So we had some common ground positions in my last slide, Mike. Hawaii has a cat population problem. Reducing the cat population would save residents and public and private agencies millions of dollars a year. Unsterilized stray and abandoned cats are a major contributing factor of feral and other free-roaming cat populations. We want to reduce and prevent the suffering and death of wildlife. We want to reduce and prevent the suffering of feral and free-roaming cats. All cats should be sterilized and microchipped, and I like your idea of the collar and the tag as well. So we're spending a lot of time on this. Animal Sheltering will be a continuing source of information about this, the magazine that I handed out to you. Take a look out for some of the narrative that comes out of the December conference that we hosted. And I think between what we did and between, Mike, what you and your team have done at Canisius, we're really starting to examine these important questions, and that is a major function that all of us should be contributing to.